Hello there. How are you? Lucky me, I get to explore all the fun stuff in masculine and feminine interaction and face some things that are concerning and really hard to navigate. So I've been speaking of my experiences in this community, and a woman saying she had a bad vibe, so I offered up a note last night of transparency, and then another woman came back, but at least now I know the truth. We had a discussion. We were speaking of a book called the Magdalen Manuscript, which is a discussion of sacred sexuality and the sacred sexuality, how it can be used to awaken and heal us. So I have that discussion in each of our groups that we're going to, and to basically reinforce the concepts I have spoken about, some of my personal experiences, and not in an explicit way. Maybe they feel that this explicit way about my experiences with past partners, and where I've used some of this sacred sexuality stuff, and it caused an effect in bodies, in experiences, in all these kind of things. And I'm now being told that my being vulnerable and being open about my experiences, so I can share experiences and teach from those experiences, makes people uncomfortable, which it's meant to be, and that my way is not the correct way. But I'm gonna dive a little deeper here at this point. So we're dealing with a whole bunch of societal expectations and programs in this. What you can talk about, what's okay to talk about in sexuality, in our physical relationships with other people. And I'm not a person that would describe explicitly a sex act or other things, but I did speak about after an orgasm, this thing happened, and all that kind of detail of what I experienced from myself and with my partner and other things. And it's really important information as far as I'm concerned, but it talks about the awakening of the body, the what do you want to call it, the cognitive dissonance that can show up after an experience like this, which is really important. But it triggered people. And the hard part for me in that is I was checking it all the time. Does this resonate with you? Is this something you want to talk about? Is this all this kind of questions? But literally there was so much in their head, and having more of a somatic experience, which I could not interpret, could not see, could not in the way they spoke, etc. But after the fact, without one single no or one single this doesn't feel good or right to me or whatever, I was judged afterwards, and I was being interpreted as doing something to someone against their will. But when you ask, okay, do you want to hear about this stuff? And everybody's like, yeah, and is this resonating? And with no response, I'm based on their previous consent, so I'll move forward. But they weren't happy with it. They had a feeling in their body. They had a trigger or a trauma show up or something of the sort, and now I'm to blame, which is another societal conditioning. So the shame and guilt about talking about anything sexual in an open fashion or in a very clean and direct way is not okay to some people. And the woman said she moved away after because she wasn't okay, which is setting up an indirect boundary. But I could have received, oh, this doesn't feel comfortable in my body, or there's a trigger showing up in my body and it doesn't feel good. And I would have honored it in that moment. We would have stopped talking about that fact or whatever. I would have given the option, would you like to talk about it? Which maybe they wouldn't want to talk about, but then they could use their words and say, no, I don't want to talk about it. I got to go sit with it. And a completely different outcome would have happened. the outcome in this was that something was done to them, they were victimized again, or whatever their trauma is, in an open speaking discussion of multiple adults. And in this situation, there was at least 3 other women in the space, and they were milking up all the information that I shared. And how could I possibly know that that woman was triggered, or how that I could interact in a different way? Now, the expectation that I'm supposed to be something or be a certain way or whatever is theirs. I am way outside the box here in how I deal with stuff and the stuff I talk about openly, and it's not easy for me to be vulnerable and talk about my experiences and talk about how this stuff is changing my life and allowing me to grow, and I'm very passionate about, so I'll talk about anything. But to be judged after the fact that I did something wrong, but it wasn't communicated in the moment, and then people are having and saying things about me because they chose not to be direct or communicative about their inner landscape, which I cannot change, I cannot fix, I cannot do anything to help. But to shame a person away or to speak into community and say this person gives off a bad vibe because it's something that they don't feel comfortable with talking about, and I was never told that they didn't want to talk about it, how can I guess? I use my intuition and feel my way through, or be myself and deal with it in this direct manner. And now somebody's spoken up and said what they felt and what they did, but I'm not sure how to respond now, because half of it, or more than half of it, is theirs. I've done so much work on being able to talk about stuff, being open and vulnerable about everything in my life. And if that's not okay, that I didn't use names of partners, I didn't say anything untoward, but I basically can speak openly of my experiences and how it felt and how things showed up and other things which can be triggering to people. And if a woman thinks that I'm violating some other woman by speaking of my experiences with another person, I don't keep the feelings that I have, all this kind of stuff buried down deep, and to keep people comfortable. And confidentiality, when it's my experience, do I hide my experience or do I talk about my experience? I can only talk about my facet of the experience and what I saw and happened in that situation, which is from a teaching perspective and from a sharing of my experience. And I don't think talking about what's experienced in my life, if it triggers somebody because I'm talking openly about my experiences of another person, of sacred sexuality, how it felt, how I saw their bodies respond, etc., is mine, my truth, my experience. And yes, if I use another person's name or share that, that's a violation of confidence, which I wouldn't do. So I'm kind of stuck here. I'm going to respond in love, but I'm also stuck with the fact that being myself is not okay for some people, which is a re-traumatization action from them. Oh, you can't do that. That's not okay. That's not respectful. You made me feel uncomfortable. Well, I cannot handle dealing with what people feel and then they don't communicate. I can't possibly know. So I keep getting this back. It's like, read my mind and please me and make me happy because I'm not happy with myself and this keeps happening and men just keep doing this thing to me or vice versa. And I'm being a nice guy and an open and vulnerable person. I get the brunt of projection. They didn't feel okay about a situation. They didn't talk about it, so it's my fault. I should be better. I should stop doing that. I should do anything to make them not feel it. Well, ultimately, and here's the key with all this stuff, that triggering, that openness that I have is a gift. Some will say it's not a gift because it's too much and it's whatever, but it's a gift. It's me talking about something, giving them an opportunity to respond, not purposely forcing something down their throat or purposely making them talk about something that makes them feel uncomfortable, but the very act of triggering for something that's in their shadow and has not been serving for a long time is a gift. And some people are going to say that's not a gift and I didn't choose or whatever. Well, in a community of people where you can be direct and you can use your yeses and nos, you can then start to have an experience where people can reflect for us and can do things in communicative ways that can trigger us. That's what relationship is all about. That's what the depth of spirituality of relationship is to have somebody that knows us and is vulnerable with us and goes deep with us and maybe triggers us, and then we can have a discussion about that triggering thing, and away you go. Some people will say, well, that's got to be earned and that's got to be built with trust and all those kind of things. Well, it can be, which can take a long time, and then a lot of people run away before they even get to that point. But I speak on a topic which excites people. I see in these women's eyes their interest and their intrigue is the word, but their excitement, their knowing that this is truth, and them wanting to, it piques their interest. There's the word I'm looking for. It piques their interest, so we start talking about it. Now, if we're going to have a topic of talking about sacred sexuality and all the pieces that go with that, do we want to have a situation where people are hiding their comfort level, their beliefs, their discomfort, etc., or do we need to train people to be direct? Say, this doesn't feel good to me. Okay, great, it doesn't feel good to you. What would you say I've done that doesn't feel good to you? It's like, oh, you've done this thing or done that thing. I didn't do anything to anyone openly. I spoke openly, I communicated openly, and something showed up. There's the gift. Something shows up. If people can go into it and say, okay, this feels uncomfortable, and my great auntie shamed me about sexuality and talking about sexuality, I got a spank for it, a slap on the face or whatever, that could be underneath it. There could be a million different things that are underneath that trigger. Or maybe if I'm talking about sexuality or something, and then they're disappointed that they never had that experience for themselves, and where do I get off giving that or sharing that or whatever? Well, only by communicating it and talking about the range of experience and the possibilities of experience and blah 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 do we find that we're missing out, or our life has been somehow incomplete in this area because our shame and our guilt. And then it can bring up a lot of things for people that have went their whole life and never had that. And that's why I'm passionate about this, and that's why I keep leaning into this and doing stuff that triggers people, and I get attacked for it and other things. I'm willing to be open and communicative and truthful about everything that I experience. And I feel it's important to have people that are like that do not get shamed by people's trauma and pain and suffering. I've lived through projection many times by doing very deep acts of service for women, and some of them included sexuality, and it transformed them in a better way. For a while it was like a monster and a dragon that was trying to burn me, but other times it opened into something beautiful and change in a person. That's something I'm doing in worship of the divine feminine. And it's not always comfortable work. It's like leaning up against your pleasure, leaning up against change, or facing your inner child in the moment, which can be all very disconcerting, because those things have kind of taken over our awareness, and it's actually leading us to failures in relationships, failures in other things. So I guess my question to you as followers and people that like to listen, do I need to back off? Because it would be so fucking easy right now to back off and not take this shit from people that are projecting on me, and now limit myself and be really careful in everything I do. Can't live my life that way. But I'm willing to walk away from the feminine. That's my first thing. It's like, fuck, these people, I do these things that are hard and deep, and it's all my fault, and I've gotta fucking own their anger, their frustration, their sadness, their whatever you want to call it, which is no fun. Not at all. So I am standing at a crossroads of, do I walk away and just live my life simple and free of this bullshit and this projection and this attacks on my self-love, my stuff I'm passionate about, and let these inner children win and blame me and cause me to walk away? Or do I lean in and I'm gonna cry and face these demons in them, the trauma demons that want to fucking smash me and get me to stop talking about this shit, and allow them to continue to hoard and take energy from these people that have no inner awareness of what they're missing and what really important parts of who they are is their sexuality and their bodies and these kind of things. So I'm a little bit stuck, a little bit confused at this moment of how to move forward. Sorry, I'm trying to find where I'm almost at my destination. So I'm sitting here in conscious awareness of people not liking this path that God and the universe has allowed me to take. And they're trying to tear me down because they don't want to do the work. They don't want to face themselves. They're aware. They got it all figured out. And they may be, and that's great. But to take me down, or to tell me that I'm being bad or doing it wrong, or I got to do better, or all this kind of shit, really just galls me. It makes me want to puke, because the gift hasn't been accepted. The trigger that maybe I gave to them was for both me to face this stuff, them to face their inner triggers, their traumas, their darkness, their unhappiness, or whatever, and have a discussion about it, but not take me down with them. So what's your thoughts? What do you believe? Yes, this may trigger you. I'm not about keeping people safe and kowtowing to their expectations. I'm about being in truth, explaining the truth, shining the truth, and making people uncomfortable. So, fuck. I just hate playing this game with people. I love you. I hope you give me some good, honest, loving feedback. Thank you. Bye.